Is there a difference between pleasure, happiness, and joy? Will a life of constant pleasure be a happy life? Will a happy life be a life filled with joy? Should I strive for the maximum amount of either pleasure or happiness as my ultimate goal in life? If I have children or hope to have children, should I pray for them first and foremost to have pleasure or happiness? There are a couple of answers to this series of questions. Certainly, most normal people would affirm that pleasure is a good, and conversely, that pain is evil. The ancient philosopher Lucretius, influenced by the philosopher Epicurus, affirmed that pleasure was the ultimate good and that pain was the ultimate evil. The best possible life, therefore, is the life that maximizes pleasure and minimizes pain. Epicurus was an atomist, believing that atoms are all there was in life and there is no spiritual dimension to life. When you die, that is the end of your existence. The gods, if they exist, don't care about you. This meant that they would not be interested in either rewarding or punishing you. Nothing to fear there. You might think that Epicurus would encourage men and women to eat, drink, and be merry, for tomorrow you die. That, according to Epicurus, would be wrong. Why? Because life is uncertain, and the pursuit of pleasure can bring with it a lot of pain. The best strategy is not to pursue pleasure, but to avoid pain. We have all known persons who make pleasure their ultimate goal and have discovered, to quote another philosopher, that life can be nasty, brutish, and short. How about love? Epicurus believed that friendship was a good, but not love. Friends can help you avoid pain in a tight situation or contribute to one's pleasure. A purely egoistic person can rationally pursue pleasure. Love is another matter. It is an illusion, and the pursuit of pleasure can make life very complicated and lead to disappointment and a lot of pain. God so loved the world. That's irrational. Gods don't love humans, or presumably one another. Social involvement is also irrational. Christian love and those who seek to emulate it are engaged in folly. How about joy? If you mean by joy what is talked about in Christian literature and other religious traditions like Hinduism and Buddhism, forget it. Nothing transcends pleasure and pain. Live as long as you can with a minimum of pain. That is the only rational kind of life. Sounds dull and meaningless? But the pursuit of meaning in a world in which meaning does not exist can only lead to grief. Epicureanism was a very prominent view in ancient times. But what about in the contemporary world? There are two sorts of answers to this question. In the first place, there are people who believe that human beings are completely physical creatures and that there is no meaning beyond the pursuit of pleasure and the avoidance of pain. For them, this is a coherent worldview, self-consciously held to be true. There is a much larger group who would not attribute this view either to others or even to themselves, but who live as if this view was true. Many of them would profess to believe in God or some sort of spiritual presence, but only introduce the spiritual dimension in a tight situation as a last resort when the pursuit of pleasure proves to be futile or a life of pain becomes unavoidable. They are not self-conscious atheists or deniers of the spiritual dimension of life. These people we may describe as practical atheists. They believe in the existence of pleasure to be sought after and the existence of pain to be avoided, often through drugs. They may even pray in a tight situation, but only as a last resort. They do not, however, experience God or any spiritual force as a living presence. Paul, the author of Galatians, attributes love to be a fruit of the Holy Spirit. Love is a necessary condition of joy. It is not just a fruit which can be realized in the next life, but which is available to the Christian in this life. Joy is not pleasure or even happiness. It is distinct from each and transcends both. It is a spiritual experience, cannot be defined, at least not easily. Those who claim to experience joy cannot analyze it. They can only point to it and affirm its existence in their lives. N.T. Wright, a noted Anglican biblical scholar and former Bishop of Durham, argues that even today we live in a world in which the dominant view is the ancient doctrine of Epicureanism. We are, in effect, practical atheists who live as if there is no spiritual dimension which transcends the physical dimension. For the world or for human beings. This raises a critical question for those of us who live in the contemporary world. Are we personally, or most of the inhabitants of Western culture, Epicureans who believe in the pragmatic value of friendship, but not in the transcendent virtue of love and joy?